We are back for another waiver wire video. You know we don't sleep on the waiver wire. We don't forget about that waiver wire. We're always tuned in every day, locked and loaded. But hey, I get it. I am with you guys if you just don't feel like there's that many good options on your waiver wire at this point of the season. But that's exactly what these videos are for. I'm here to hopefully help you highlight some guys that you may have overlooked on the wire, about a player that you're thinking about picking up, or maybe there's a popular pickup right now that you just don't fully believe in. I'm always going to give my honest opinion about the players. I'm not just going to randomly pump up these guys so I can make a video. So if I'm not fully on board with the player, you guys will know, just like I've done in the past. With that being said, let's get into it. We're going to go over 10 players this week. We're going to recap my previous waiver wire video from 2 weeks ago, from week 9. Is there a punishment? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. We're going to go over some shallow league ads and some deep league ads as well. And we're also going to go over a new segment for relief pitching, high upside relievers for leagues that count holds. As always, I appreciate everyone being here. You guys are legends. Thank you. If you aren't subscribed, please do. Hit that button. It's waiting to be clicked. Turn those noties on. Give it a thumbs up if you're liking this content. And without further ado, I'm Chris, and welcome to Number 2 Sports. Okay, first up, we have a smoking hot hitter, absolutely on fire at the dish right now, Addison Barger from the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, don't worry, this is just going to be a quick blurb because I know he's probably gone in all competitive leagues because he, again, like I said, he is smoking hot from the dish right now. And to be honest, he actually should be performing a little bit better too. His expected WOBA is actually 20 to 30 points higher than his actual one. He has all the underlying metrics. If you look at his StatCast page, it's absolutely bleeding red. He's reduced his strikeout rate. He's increased his walk rate. He's making solid contact across the board. It's really all started to come together for him, and you can just notice it in his recent games. This dude looks legit. He recently was moved up into the 3-hole for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he's going to get to play through most lefties, even though he just sat against the lefty a couple games ago. I'm betting on him having a huge second half. If you grabbed him, nice work. Next up, we have a starting pitcher coming back into the rotation, or at least the rotation spot is now secure for the foreseeable future due to the Corbin Burns injury. And that's Ryne Nelson from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So to be honest, I don't know how really in I am on Ryne Nelson, and it also sucks that I didn't get to see one more start with him because I'm recording this Friday night and he's projected to start tomorrow in Cincinnati. But again, like I said, now he's going to get an extended look due to the Corbin Burns injury. He doesn't have the most overpowering arsenal. He has a fastball that hovers around 95, 96 miles per hour, but it has great vert on it at almost 19.1 inches. So that plays really well at the major league level. He follows that up with a cutter, curveball, slider, but he throws all those pitches under 15% of the time. Like last year, he really needs that third pitch to come alive, other than the four-seamer and the cutter, to really take that next step and for us to get excited about him from a fantasy standpoint. So that's why I'm sort of pumping the brakes on him now, at least for a little bit. I don't know if he's developed the slider or curveball enough. Neither of them have a positive run value on it. He's getting a solid whiff percentage on the curveball, around 30%, but it's also getting hit hard 55% of the time, which just isn't good for your secondary stuff. The silver lining here is that they actually are both showing better than last year, so he is showing signs of improvement. And that's something I always look out for with these guys, improvement. His ERA is right around what it's expected to be, same with his FIP, so he's not drastically underperforming or not drastically overperforming. Everything seems pretty steady. The RP eligibility is huge for anyone punting saves in a weekly lock or a daily lock trying to get more starters out there. He's definitely someone to keep your eye on. I'm super intrigued how he's going to pitch against Cincinnati. That's going to be a big thing for me. I don't think he's a blow your budget type player. Let's see what he does against Cincinnati and go from there. Next up, we have an exciting young catching prospect from the Chicago White Sox, Kyle Teel. Mr. Steel, Blue Steel. This guy got recently called up and started his first game tonight in Friday and got his first career hit. So good for you, man. Congrats. But Kyle is an exciting young catching prospect and one of the main pieces, or the other piece that came back in the Garrett Crochet trade. The other player was Chase, who we talked about in the video from 2 weeks ago. Kyle has had a strong season in AAA so far with a 295, 380, 492 triple stash with 8 home run, 30 RBI, and 7 swipes. That speed, if he can keep that up at the major league level, would be huge from the catcher position. He pairs that with a 25.4 strikeout percentage, which isn't bad, not great, and a 14.1 walk percentage. All his offensive tools grade out fairly well, and I think the ceiling for him this year could possibly be a top 10 catcher if all falls right for him. But you never really know with these rookies nowadays because there's such a big difference in AAA pitching compared to the MLB level that some of these rookies take so long to adjust. Some get sent back down, and then in their second stint, you can see a lot of signs of improvement like Matt Shaw, where some just start out really slow. And in general, it just takes them a lot longer to get their feet underneath them. Kyle actually got caught stealing tonight, but he also threw someone out in his first attempt, someone trying to swipe second. So that's a good sign for him getting consistent playing time behind the dish if people aren't able to run on him. I'm rooting for the kid. I love the video of him giving his collared shirt to Chase when he didn't have one when he got called up. Seems humble, seems dedicated, and he seems ready to work. Is there some hope? Chicago White Sox fans right now? Like, they got some youth, they got some pieces, right? Let me know in the comments down below. So we have another repeat guy. I know I talked about this guy a few weeks ago or a month now, but Nick Kurtz off the Athletics. I know we've talked lots about this guy, so I'm going to keep it brief, but this was primarily for leagues that he may have been dropped after he got sent to the IL with his injury. Right before his injury, he finally looked like he's starting to get his feet underneath him and he was adjusting to major league pitching. He homered 4 times in his last 5 games and looked like he was really starting to come into his own. Some managers may have dropped him in shallow leagues, or some people got impatient because, again, before that last 5-6 games, he really wasn't doing much at all. I'll definitely go double check your wire. He can definitely be a high impact bat and could have a huge second half in the Athletics lineup. Okay, boys, I've been so stoked. I've been waiting to talk about this guy again. Greatest name of fantasy sports is Mr. Two-Finger Dingler, Dillon Dingler, the catcher from the Detroit Tigers. Okay, but in all seriousness, it actually looks like Dillon sees that starting role now from Jake Rogers because he's just been absolutely atrocious at the dish lately. So if we actually do some analysis on Dillon, besides just making jokes about his funny name, if we look back at last year, he only appeared in 27 games and really struggled to a 167 batting average. And the most concerning thing was he struck out 34.5% of the time, which is just obviously way too high. But if we look to his AAA stats from last year, he was very solid, posting a 308 average with an impressive 938 OPS over 71 games, really highlighting and showing off some of that raw, untapped offensive potential. And if we fast forward to this year, he's shown some real signs of improvement at the plate. He's cut his strikeout rate down to a manageable 26.3%, which yes, it's still too high, but it's a lot better than that 34.5% from last year. He's increased his launch angle and bumped up his ISO by almost 30 points. His batting average of balls in play is still running pretty high at 381, so you can expect some regression there. But his expected batting average and expected WOBA are actually very similar to the actuals, so don't expect any drastic changes there. He's not really overperforming in any regard. He's 10 for 33 with 2 home run and 9 RBI over the last 2 weeks. And really, if you're in need of catching help, he's definitely worth a look. And just think of the fantasy team names you could run with him on your squad. That's gotta count for something if you're a fantasy manager. Next up, we have a guy who's just been doing his thing all year. Kind of gives me Steven Kwan type vibes, but it's Sal Frelick from the Milwaukee Brewers. So this guy isn't gonna blow you away in any certain category, but he should be a good source of hits and counting stats. And if we look at his most recent game log, it looks like some power starting to show up, but going forward, I don't think we can count on that rest of season. If you just look at his StatCats page, it's polar opposites. All blue in the power categories and all red in the plate discipline categories. If we are looking to add Sal, it's primarily for his batting average stats and his hitting and counting stats. He'll also be a threat on the base pass, which will also be a huge boost to his fantasy value. His whiff percentage and K percentage are at the very top of the league. His expected batting average is 275, which is just a little bit lower than his actual batting average, around 290. And if he starts to show a little signs of life with some power, and he's actually been decent at getting some RBIs in the last couple weeks, that'll just be an added bonus to his fantasy line. A couple of his home runs have been absolute bombs too, so who knows, maybe he does have some power deep down inside him there, but I'm just not counting on it whatsoever the rest of season. But he's only 25, so you never really know. If you're in a 5 outfield league team, he can definitely be a useful back-end option for you, hitting in a solid spot in a decent lineup. Okay, for this next part, we're going to roll into like 3 players who I classify as like stash candidates that you really should be looking to see if they're available on your league's wire, because they could be huge difference makers for the second half of the season. Okay, the first stash candidate we got is Keaschall from the Minnesota Twins. He suffered a right forearm fracture and his return date was around 2 months from the time of injury, so that puts us around end of June or early July. And let's not forget, this guy was running absolutely wild for the Twins when he was called up. He really sparked their lineup when they were scuffling earlier this season. Through his first 7 games, he had a 368 batting average, and a 1.065 OPS. Add in the 5 steals, and he looked like he was going to be fantasy gold off the waiver wire. I know it's a very small sample size, but he was a touted prospect. He has all the physical tools, and he didn't look overmatched at the plate in his first 7 games of the season. It was honestly a shame that he got injured because I was really interested. I would have loved to see if he could have kept this up. Obviously, it wouldn't be this good. He's not going to bat 360 the rest of the year, but I would like to see how much he would have kept of that production and if he would have continued running wild like he had. I think he's a great stash candidate if you have an open IL spot, and you should go pick him up now, throw him on there now, because the closer we get to the return date, the closer that we get to him getting back onto the field, it's when people are going to start taking notice again, start talking about him again. So you might as well get him now while he's practically free and don't have to break the bank later on. He could definitely be a difference maker in the second half of the season. The next stash candidate that we got is Mr. Spaghetti, Spencer Arrighetti, starting pitcher from the Houston Astros. Again, this is another guy that you want to check to see if he was dropped. He's been out since the start of the year. He has legitimate swing and miss stuff that you just can't find on the wire, and just has major upside for fantasy managers. He needs to work on reducing his walk rate, but he has a great arsenal. He has a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, but again, he has that elite extension at 7.2 feet that just makes the ball come that much quicker if you're a hitter facing him. He's still only 25 years old. A lot of people were predicting him to break out this year. If someone was impatient or was just getting hammered by injuries and couldn't keep him and he's floating around on your wire, he's a great stash candidate if you have an open spot. The next stash candidate, even though he's not really a stash because he is healthy and he's playing right now, but is Hae-Sung Kim from the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I'm putting him in here as a stash because he's just not getting consistent playing time at all to be really usable, especially in weekly lock leagues for fantasy managers. If this guy would just get consistent playing time, I think he could definitely be a difference maker for fantasy teams across the board. He's batting .404 on the season with 21 hits, 2 homers, 7 RBI, and 5 swipes. And unfortunately, there's just no room in that loaded Dodgers lineup to fit him in on a nightly basis. If he continues hitting like this in a small sample size, he's gonna force his way in. But again, injuries do happen, and I know it's unfortunate. Kim's going to be the first one up there to fill that void, depending on the position, obviously. But I don't want to have to break the bank if or when that happens. If you have the luxury to have him as a pure bench stash at this point, I'd highly recommend doing it. Injuries in this stuff are unpredictable, but talent always prevails, and I think we could see him in a more regular role sooner rather than later. Next up, we have a starting pitcher who's honestly being really solid besides his first outing of the year when he got absolutely imploded by the White Sox, but that's Chris Paddack from the Minnesota Twins. Now, I freaking put myself in a similar position again like I did with Ryan Nelson. I wanted to see one more start with him, but filming this on Friday night, I don't get to see his start tomorrow, Saturday. But if we look back at his last couple outings, and especially his last outing against the Mariners, anytime a pitcher's getting double-digit strikeouts, we have to take notice. And for the record, I still think there is a lot of blow-up potential with him, but to his credit, he has reduced his home run to fly ball ratio over the last 2 years. It was 25% in 2023, which is just insane. 12.2 last year, and currently it's right around league average at 9.2 for this year. I'm not that excited that his K percentage has continued to drop year over year, but again, like we were talking about against the Mariners, double-digit strikeouts is impressive, and he really got his slider going in that game. 5 for 17 for whiffs and a 41% CSW. He also gained a couple ticks of velocity on it, now sitting at 87, 88 miles per hour. And the thing that was also really cool, his curveball landed for strikes 60% of the time. And he threw his curveball 15 times against the Mariners. Now, the Mariners definitely have been slumping over the last couple weeks. And I know if you think about last year, they were always a super strikeout heavy team. So maybe this isn't the best judgment of him changing something or him making some improvements that are going to be long lasting the rest of the season. But I definitely think a ton of people just were done with him, totally wrote him off after he got imploded week 1 against the White Sox. But if you look at his game logs, he's been quietly solid pretty much every start after that. Again, his start tomorrow is going to be really telling for me. I'm not fully on board, but if he has another good outing again, I think he can definitely be a useful back-end starter for most 12-team leagues. Okay, now let's do something a little crazy here. I want to do like a relief pitching roundup here for people with holds, so the hold category in their league. These pitchers will also be for people in weekly lock leagues that want to stabilize their ERA and WHIP throughout the course of the week and have high upside strikeout potential. We're going to quickly talk about 5 relief pitchers, and I'm going to rank them as follows. At number 5, we're going Matt Brash, and I know I've talked about this guy a couple times this year. He'll have some of the nastiest pitches you'll see with a slider and curveball in the entire MLB. I think his setup role is solid, and I like his strikeout potential. Next on the list is Bryan Abreu. He has a nasty slider, high 90s fastball. Some of the stuff underneath might seem a little shaky, but he's going to have a chance to almost get 40 holds again this year, which is so valuable in a holds league. Now, these next two guys can be pretty much interchangeable, but at number 3, we got Jeremiah Estrada, another guy who I've talked about in the past, and he is absolutely filthy stuff, evidenced by his 37% K rate. 37. He has so much movement on his splitter and four-seamer, and he's in a great setup spot, high leverage spot with the Padres. He's going to get an abundance of hold chances, opportunities as well. In my 2 spot, I'm going to put Randy Rodriguez, and this guy looks like he's blossoming into an absolute stud. He's also getting the actual odd save chance as well to go along with the holds. His StatCast page is literally off the charts. Just look at this. He's an expected FIP of 1.77 and an expected ERA of 1.76. Tag that with a 40.2. 40.2 K percentage. In the 100th percentile in the league. This guy is going to rack up mad Ks. He's going to lower your periffs across the board, and he's going to get the odd save, like I said, and he's going to get a lot of hold opportunities. This guy is future closer written all over him. And at the number 1 spot, we're going with Griffin Jax. If you look at face value, his ERA looks a little inflated, but we can ignore that from just a couple bad outings earlier this year. His expected ERA is 2.92 with an expected FIP of 1.30, showing he has got a little bit unlucky. His K percentage is insane. His periffs will be awesome, and he is going to get a ton of hold opportunities throughout the year. There's not many more relievers as reliable as Griffin Jax. Okay, these are the 5 relief pitchers that you need to take a look at if you're in a hold league. I didn't want to highlight anyone over 25% owned, so this isn't like my top 5 in the MLB or anything like that. This is strictly for fantasy purposes, 25% owned and under. And like I said, if you're like one of those guys that punt starters, just gets that minimum innings in a weekly lock league, and you want someone with high upside potential to lower and steady your ERA and whip throughout the week, go take a look at these guys. Probably a ton of them will be floating around your wire if you're just in a save-heavy league. Okay, now let's jump into the shallow league segment. And again, these are all based off Yahoo percentages. And these are going to be players hovering around the 50 to 60% owned range. So they should be available if you're in an 8-man league or some 10-man leagues. And I have highlighted a couple guys that I just think it's criminal that they're not like 99% owned. So make sure you stick around for this. See if any of these guys are maybe floating around in your wire. And if they're not, and you already got these guys, at least you can give yourself a little pat on the back, or, you know, a little roster bait or something like that, whatever floats your boat. Okay, first up, we're going to go Ryan O'Hearn, 58% rostered from the Baltimore Orioles. Now, this guy is an absolute StatCast darling. He's an expected WOBA of 407, which is in the 96th percentile. He's batting cleanup for an Orioles team that's been playing a lot better in the last week or so. In years past, he'd primarily been a strict platoon player, but that hasn't happened so far this year, at least not against all lefties. And he's actually hitting 323 against lefties this year, which is amazing. It's only in 31 at-bats, but still, small sample size, but it's promising. Also, with his dual eligibility, this roster rate should be a lot higher. Next up, we have Sal Goodman, or Hunter Goodman as people in the MLB like to call him, from the Colorado Rockies. I think Hunter will finish as a top 12 catcher at worst, so by that alone, he should be owned in way more 12-team leagues. He's got good power, he needs to work on his strikeout rate, he needs to work on his whiff rate a little bit, but he's making a ton of hard contact, and he's getting to play half his game at Coors Field, and especially in the summer months, the ball's just going to be leaving that park like no tomorrow. Okay, next up, we have one of those criminally under-owned guys, and Zach Meadows, 79% rostered, and his roster rate actually went down 1%. Now, I know there's a ton of leagues in Yahoo that just draft and then nothing's ever touched again, or a bunch of like Mickey Mouse leagues where people are coming, leaving, not touching their rosters all season long. So maybe that's where that remaining 20% is accounted for. But again, this guy should be 99% owned, if not 100% owned. He's an absolute stud. If you have him in a dynasty league, you must be over the moon about him. There is so much to like in his fantasy game. Practically everything that I just said could be said about Jacob Wilson as well, only 80% rostered. And man, if he has 20 home run power potential, look out. He's going to skyrocket up dynasty rankings everywhere. Next up, we got Max Muncy, 68% roster from the Dodgers. And man, all you need to do is just start wearing some glasses. This is a reminder, go get your eyes checked out, boys. We can't be scoping out birds in less than 20/20 vision. Nothing less. Mason Wynn from the St. Louis Cardinals, batting 2-hole, 56% rostered. This guy has 20 plus home run potential, 10 plus steal potential. He should be on a lot more rosters than he currently is. Add in that potential for collecting all those counting stats. He's a solid middle infield option with only more potential to grow. He's only 23 years old, remember. Yasin Dominguez, the Yankees' top prospect, the Martian. He has all the tools. He's shown glimpses of superstardom. I'm going to bet on him having a huge second half in the summer months and being a productive player in the middle of this Yankees potent lineup. Next up, we have Lourdes Gurriel Jr. at 51% rostered. He's been playing really well the last month, and you can also expect a little positive regression in his BABIP and his WOBA. His ISO dropped to a career low of 156 last year, but it's back up to 180, which is a promising sign for his power. I think he can be a very useful player second half of the season. Next up, we got Ceddanne Rafaela at 47%. It was a pretty cool call last night. Ceddanne, say gone. When he hit that maybe potentially the shortest walk-off home run ever in that short right porch at Fenway. Power is really showing up lately, and his expected WOBA is actually 30 points higher than his current, showing that he hasn't been overmatched at the plate at all this year. All his hard hit metrics like exit velocity, bail rate, max exit velocity, and hard hit percentage have all greatly improved from the prior year. He has some speed and he has triple position eligibility in Yahoo, especially and most importantly, two bag. I am so intrigued by him right now. I want him on every team that I need middle infield help. Next up, we have Matt Shaw at 49% rostered. It's another guy I've talked about so much in the last few weeks. I just love pumping his tires, but he's looked a lot better in his second stint in the majors. And again, if he can get that speed going, the speed is his key to go into fantasy superstardom. It will immensely help his value in the second half of the season. Sadie just freaking ripped ass here. I'm so pissed it wasn't recording because, man, it was a good one. Next up, we got David Robertson from the Mets at 63% rostered. And this guy was actually just dropped in one of my leagues this week. God knows why, but he is so good. This guy's going to eat innings. He's going to give you a great chance at a win and a quality start each outing. He's not going to necessarily blow you away in the strikeout department, but he's going to be solid there, and he's never going to blow up your ratios. He's inducing more ground balls this year. He's, like I said, increased his strikeout ratio, and he's a 3.31 FIP. He's a solid back-end starter for every league. Ranger Suarez, 77% rostered from the Philadelphia Phillies. This guy is a quality start machine. Pencil him in for one, or at least a great shot of one every time he takes the bump. I do expect a little regression since his FIP is 2.52 with an expected FIP of 3.51. He is still a high upside starting pitching. He is still a high upside SP2 in all leagues. I still have nightmares that I recommended Max Meyer over this guy way back at the beginning of the year. And let's just take this moment to pour one out for Mad Max and all his fantasy potential, because man, what has happened? He was looking like a stud bona fide star going to superstardom, and now he looks like he's just droppable in even 10-man leagues. You just can't start him right now. It's crazy. Sorry, brother. Let's pour one out. Reese Olson, 61% roster from the Tigers. He's coming back soon from that finger injury. He was pitching so well leading up to that point. I think a little correction's coming in his home run to fly ball ratio. He's got a little lucky in that regard, but he's made improvements on his secondary stuff and he's not throwing as many meatballs, so it might not level out as harshly as it looks. I still think he's a solid SP3, SP4 in all leagues. Justin Martinez, only 54% rostered. I know I've talked about this guy lots just because his pitches are absolutely nasty. I know he can be kind of crazy at times, especially in his last outing, but he's going to be a good bet for solid saves all year long, high upside strikeout potential, and low ratios. He needs to be on way more rosters than this. Edward Scissorhands, Edward Cabrera, we just talked about this guy in last week's video, still only 22% rostered, even after he's had 2 good outings in a row. I'm giving him one more quick shout out because of that, but you know I love this guy. I talked how I've always fallen for him, but man, I think this could be legit. I think that arm angle has helped him so much. I'm not letting him float around on any wires, just in case he's figured it out. And this is his path, finally his path to being great. There's no way there's a more strikeout happy player floating around on your wires. Okay, now let's go over a few deep league guys that should be available pretty much everywhere. Not going to go into a ton of detail on these guys, because if these are potential options for those deep league sickos out there, you don't need me to tell you. You've already done all your research. You've done everything. Maybe you just want that extra little push. Go hit that button. Talked about this guy about 2 weeks ago in that first deep league segment, Andrew Benintendi, bat and cleanup, and he's playing really well lately. If I needed outfield help in a deep league, he's got to be a priority. Spencer Horwitz, I know we talked about a couple weeks ago. He'll be a cheap source of hits and great OBP. Also throw in some power potential with him as well. Nick Lofton, if he just got more consistent playing time, he just hit a home run a few days ago, especially now with Jack Caglianone called up. I don't know what's going to happen with his playing time, so someone to keep an eye on. But if he ever got a full-time role, there's a lot to like in his fantasy game, and especially since he has 2-bag eligibility. We'll throw Robert Hassel on here again. It looks like he's starting to get his feet underneath him a little bit. He's playing a little bit better lately. I'll expect him to get a little bit better over the summer months as he gets more adapted, more used to major league pitching. And last up, Denzel Clarke, good old Canadian kid. Freak athlete, showing some signs of life at the plate. He's holding down an everyday role with the A's right now. He's definitely worth a look. And the hope is, with most of these kids, as they get more used to major league pitching and in the summer months, they're going to make improvements and they're going to be a lot better, more easily justifiable to certain to our fantasy lineups. We keep throwing the clock back here with Andrew McCutchen. He's batting the 2-hole alibi in a crappy Pirates lineup, but his underlying stats look solid, and Pirates have a great schedule next week for hitters against Miami and Chicago. I think he'd be very useful for a lot of deep league teams out there. And last up, Tim Elko, the one-legged wonder again. The White Sox are looking like they're totally giving their youth full go right now, which is great. He can definitely be useful for a cheap power source. Let me know if those weren't deep enough picks for you. Yes, I know that sounds sus, but we're going to keep on rolling. Some of those guys were 0% owned or under 5% owned, but I can go a lot deeper. Again, sus, but we're going to keep on rolling. So make sure you comment down below. Let me know. Okay, now it's time for the recap. This is going to be recapping my waiver wire video from 2 weeks ago, week 9. As usual, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these guys. We're just going to quickly recap how they did over the last 2 weeks to see if there's a punishment justified. Also, you don't want to miss this segment in case some of these guys are still floating around on your wire and you didn't watch that video and you just want a quick update on how they're doing. Okay, first up on the recap was Chase Meidroth from the Chicago White Sox. And if you remember when I highlighted Chasey Boy, I wasn't that excited about him because I thought his fantasy value really hinged on him being able to steal bases. And its margin for error for fantasy would be very low without it, due to playing on such a bad lineup and pretty much a 0 in the power department. And over the last 2 weeks, that's pretty much exactly what's happened. Only 1 steal, no power, and just some empty hits. He has been a plus in OBP department, but my stance really hasn't changed on him. That lineup around him is just too crappy to consistently hit him in. So if he's not stealing bases and a 0 in the power category, he's just going to be an OBP and hits type guy, which is definitely still useful for 12-team leagues. I just think people set the ceiling for him or for the bar for him so high. And I think we got to take that down a notch. Next up, we had Will Warren off the Yankees. Now, Warren had an okay outing against the Rockies and then got absolutely obliterated by the Dodgers the following start. He had 0 control, and I mean 0. He couldn't locate anything, only throwing 29 out of 57 pitches for strikes, which is just terrible. I am going to give him the pass because he had been pitching so well, and the Dodgers are one of the best, if not the best, lineup in baseball. In his next start against Boston, he still had some of that same control issues, walking 4 batters again, which isn't ideal by any means. There's too many base runners allowed. They tagged him for 3 hits and 4 earned runs in 5.1 innings, but he also had 6 strikeouts. So I'm not overly happy about this start. Was a little bit of improvement based on his prior one, but he really needs to figure out this control issues, because if this keeps up, I can't see him being that viable going forward. He's always going to have that high upside strikeout potential, but he can't be destroying your ERA and whip each week. Next up, we had Jack Caglianone, and he actually got called up about a week earlier than I thought, but I can't blame the Royals because he was absolutely mashing AAA pitching. Like, there's nothing for him left to prove down at that level. Now, he has started out really rough, but I think that's come to expected now with most rookies. The pitching gap from AAA to the majors just isn't what it used to be, and these kids are struggling more and more in the beginning. I think he still obviously has loads of upside, loads of potential, so my stance hasn't changed on him. I still think he's a must-stash everywhere where he's available. Next up, we had the big lefty Ryan Weathers off the Miami Marlins. Now, he had a great start against the Padres, almost getting that quality start. He got yanked at 5.2 innings, but had no earned runs and 6 Ks. He had a little rougher outing against San Francisco, still had 7 Ks with 17 whiffs on 99 pitches, but got a 3-run homer in the 4th that ruined his line and kind of put a damper on his day. I'm really intrigued to see what he does against Tampa. I still think he is a high upside, high strikeout arm, and he shouldn't be on anybody's waivers in 12-team leagues. Next up, we had Parker Meadows, and he was a guy I talked about a bunch of times coming back from his injury. In his first game, he started back awesome and just fully showcased his potential as a fantasy starter going forward. 3 runs, 2 hits, and a swipe. And if he consistently bats at the top of the order against righties, that Detroit lineup is a lot better this year. He'll have the opportunity to accumulate so many counting stats. I just want to see how often he's going to get benched when a lefty's up on the mound, or how far he's going to get bumped down that order. That's really going to determine his fantasy value for the second half of the season. Now, next up, we had Landen Roupp from San Francisco Giants. In his first outing against Detroit, he was zooming. Had 7 Ks in the fourth, no runs allowed, then it all fell apart for him on a stupid Matt Chapman error and a walk, a double, and then the bullpen didn't bail him out. However, in his second start against the Padres, he was amazing, firing 6.1 scoreless innings with 5 Ks and really showing off that potential. I really like the upside on him for rest of season, and especially with that relief pitching eligibility. Like I harp on every video, everyone's probably sick of me saying it, but it really helps if you're punting saves or you need extra starts throughout your week that you can get in that RP spot. After that, we had Jake Meyers, and he was definitely recommended just for a cheap source of hits, OBP, and batting average. He unfortunately was a slight disappointment. He was riding a nice hit streak with some power going into the recommendation. Even though the last week wasn't the greatest, he still had an outstanding May overall with an 879 OPS. I still think he's definitely an okay end of bench guy if you're in a 5 outfielder league, or a bottom end starter if you have 5 outfielders. I don't think we need to chase him in any shallow leagues though. He can be left on the wire in most cases. Following kind of another bad recommendation was Spencer Horwitz. He wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. He's definitely a guy recommended for a cheap source of hits again and OBP. We'd like to see a little more power with him or some multi-hit games, but he's mainly a guy who's going to help you out in the OBP category and batting average category, and it doesn't look like he's going to do too much else. You definitely don't need to hold him in 12-man leagues. Cut him free, let him go. Next up, we have Slade Cecconi, who had his first start delayed because he aggravated his groin. And frankly, he got pretty lit up by the Angels, so maybe it was still affecting him a little bit. Against the Yankees, though, he allowed 2 runs on 5 hits over 5 innings. Only 73 pitches in this one. Again, I imagine they wanted to ease him back in somewhat. He had a 27% CSW, and he got 16 inches of vert on the fastball. The secondary stuff wasn't anything special, but it got the job done. It was a solid start against a potent lineup and a nice little bounce back for him. I'm treating him as a start against good matchup type player for now until I see a little bit more. I haven't fully bought in. Not yet. Following up him, we got Kody Clemens from Minnesota. Now I'm starting to actually get a little bit worried about Kody because Minnesota's getting a lot of these guys back from IL. And it's starting to get crowded in their lineup. They're still trying to find ways to get Clemens bat in the lineup, like him recently playing second base. But if he isn't getting consistent enough playing time, his sporadic power just won't help anyone. I think he's definitely a cut candidate in 12-team leagues. Next up, we have Birdie Boy, Mr. Birdsong, Hayden Birdsong. And if you remember, I wasn't overly confident in him either. He wasn't really a recommendation for me or someone to blow your budget on. And in his first start against Detroit, he kind of proved that. He struggled letting in 3 runs over 4.1 innings, but with 6 Ks. So it really showed that strikeout potential upside with him, but then also showed his control issues and sporadic pitching, really. The next start against the lowly Marlins went a lot better, almost getting that quality start and showing off, again, that raw strikeout potential he has. He's still very wild, and his start against Atlanta today, Friday, evidenced that even more. He had 5 walks, 5 Ks, and only lasted 4.1 innings. So my stance really hasn't changed. I'm not that in on him. He needs to get better control, better ability to locate his pitches. The strikeout potential is on clear display. Everyone knows that. But if he's a guy that's going to blow up your ERA, blow up your whip, it's not going to be worth starting chasing those strikeouts in 12-man leagues. I need to see him bring it together a bit more, put some things together, hone in that control issues before I'm fully bought in. And next up, we have the good old Canadian kid, Denzel Clarke off the Athletics. I recommended Denzel Washington as a wait and see type guy because he is a freak of an athlete, and he really has started to come alive at the dish in the last week or so. He had an absolutely horrendous start, but he started to show off some power, showing that speed, and I'm starting to buy in. Maybe it's because he's Canadian, but I don't know. I'm kind of in on him right now. Andrew Painter is the next guy, and my stance on him hasn't changed at all. He's still one of the top pitching prospects to stash besides Bubba Chandler. You need to add him wherever he's available. And lastly, Agustin Ramirez. Talked about him a few times now. I think he's a top 12 catcher in the league. He has good power, has some of that speed. Plays in a crappy Miami Marlins lineup. And I know the catching position is deep this year, but I definitely think he has top 12 upside, so he should be on a lot more rosters. I was just about to post this today and realized I forgot to film an outro. I may or may not have a video next week. I'm going away golfing with a golf trip with the boys. So I might have it earlier, or I might have something different in the middle of the week. But if not, I'll see you when I see you. Take it easy. Thanks for being here. Adios.